Hi, this is Talia Roberts. Welcome to my studio in Montgomery, Vermont, and welcome to my Ava Artist Studio Tour. I have an upcoming exhibition for Ava Gallery on July 31st. I also would like to mention that this project is supported in part by the Vermont Arts Council and National Endowment for the Arts on the web at arts.gov. And this is a peek at what I do and what I have been up to and what will be on display. This is my art studio. I'm a visual artist and this is where I paint. I first fell in love with paintings when I was an undergrad taking an intro to painting class. It was the first time I worked with oil paint. I learned how to prepare canvas, mixed colors, built a palette, and discovered how much I loved the process. I've been fascinated by color for as long as I can remember. Growing up, art was just a natural part of life in my family, so creating has always felt like second nature. As an oil painter, I became increasingly concerned over time about my own health and the environmental impacts of conventional oil paints with cobalts, cadmiums, and at the same time I was learning to grow vegetables and looking for ways to live more closely with the natural world. So that curiosity initially led me to learn how to make my own oil paint from plants and soil samples and rocks. I use a hammer to crack a rock into small-sized chunks that can then be ground down and further refined into pigment using my mortar and pestle. Collecting rocks has become my main source of inspiration for painting. Using locally sourced materials allows each painting to carry the memory of a place. That connection inspired me to title my most recent series, Earth Memories, Moon Visions. For the Ava Gallery, I have taken 7 rocks I collected from my home here in Vermont and used them to make 14 paintings. Presented in pairs, the paintings all share a reoccurring circular motif, the image of a moon. To explore duality and the relationship between the real, tangible world and the cosmos, connecting the rocks with the stars. Making pigment by hand takes several days to process. Throughout this process, I work outdoors and always wear an N95, safety glasses, and gloves. It can take several hours to grind a rock into a fine pigment. After that, the pigment has to be washed to remove any impurities until the water is clear. Once it's clean, the pigment is spread out on parchment paper to dry. Then after it dries, it's ground one more time with a mortar and pestle before it's ready to be molded. For the painting process, I place the pigment on my glass palette and form a shallow well for the oil. I use walnut oil in this series. I prefer it for its light color, but walnut oil varies from almost clear to slightly yellow depending on the batch. As you can see here, I have 2 glasses of the same oil, but they look quite different from one another. Then I mix the pigment with walnut oil until it looks like softened butter. Each painting in this series contains one hue and its tint. So each pigment is also mixed with white marble dust, a material that has a long history of use in oil painting. And the marble dust creates a softer, lighter version of the original hue. The pigment is molded using a glass molar and figure 8 motions to thoroughly combine and suspend the pigment in the walnut oil. I have found that the coarse pigment does not travel long distances across the canvas well, which is why I've chosen to apply the paint in short, stippled brushstrokes. The canvas stays flat on the table and remains there to dry for an additional 2 to 3 weeks before it can be hung on a wall. I apply the coarse pigment to the already prepped canvas in one long, lengthy sitting, which usually takes me about 5 hours of painting, depending on the coarseness of each pigment. I do think that painting a canvas in one moment without taking a break is what gives these paintings a watery quality. I hope that people viewing these paintings feel a sense of familiarity with the colors and feel a connection to the place where the colors came from. I'm overwhelmed by the beauty of the natural world, and I hope to honor that beauty through these paintings. I would tell anyone viewing this series in person to stand really close to the paintings and take a slow look at the texture on the surface. There you can see fragments of rock that give the surface its character, and after a while, the looking can become a meditation. I'd like to end this video to say thank you to everyone who has supported this project and my artwork. If you want to see more of my artwork, you can find me on the web at taliaroberts.com. And thank you, Ava Gallery.